You're listening to a podcast appearing on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
This is the weekly Firecast, episode 20, interview with Tim Bader of Volcanic Peppers.
Strap yourselves in. It's time for the weekly Firecast. This is the podcast for all foodies, those who love food that is cooked over a fire or feels like fire in your mouth. If you love spice, smoke, sauce, and all things savory, this is the show for you. And now, here's your host, chili head and barbecuer, Scott Roberts.
And welcome everybody to episode 20 of the weekly Firecast. If you're into hot, smoldering, spicy foods, this is the place. This is the little podcast that's geared especially for you. And in this week's episode, I talked to Tim Bader of Volcanic Peppers. He grows and he deals with chili peppers, especially some of the super hot ones. And he has several excellent dried chili pepper seasonings, including a lineup called Volcano Dust, which of course are very good to sprinkle on your food when you need a quick dose of extreme heat as well as some good flavor. And just like a lot of chili heads, he dabbles in creating a few of his own sauces. So here in just a bit, I'll get the word on him and kind of ask him, where he started and what his process is in creating all of that. And before that, I will get to my product review. This one is called Loud Orange Sunshine Mango Habanero Sauce, a very interesting product. So you'll definitely not want to skip through that part of the podcast. But first things first, I want to get through a little bit of housekeeping. First, I want to thank a lot of people, whoever had rated and reviewed podcasts in iTunes. Remember, if you want to do that, simply go to the iTunes page for the weekly Firecast, look for the ratings and reviews link, and just give it a star rating. Just simply type out a couple sentences, what you think of the podcast, and submit it. So for about 30 seconds of your time, it will really help out the podcast greatly. Because the more positive feedback I get in iTunes, the better the podcast will rank in the iTunes listings, both for hot sauce and for barbecue. So since obviously I want to reach as many people, that's why I ask you, the loyal listening audience, to do that. So I thank you in advance, and keep the feedback coming. Let me know what you like about the podcast, what you don't like, what kind of guest and subject matters you want to hear about. Do that, simply go to the numeral 2guystalking.com, go to the weekly Firecast page, go to the contact form on the left-hand side of the page, fill it out, and give your feedback. And lastly, I wanted to mention a lot of the people who shared the link for the last episode of the weekly Firecast, both on Facebook and on Twitter. And if you're unfamiliar with how this process goes, whenever I post a new link to an episode of the weekly Firecast, you share it on Facebook, you retweet the link, I will mention your name or your company's name in the very next episode. And if you're a fiery foods or barbecue company, a food company in general, what better way to get your name exposed to the few thousand subscribers that I have right now just by doing it, just by sharing the love. Let people know about the weekly Firecast podcast. So anyway, here are the people, first of all, who retweeted me on Twitter. There was my buddy Sean Mundell. His Twitter handle is @TGuzzler. There was Smokers Wild BBQ. Their Twitter handle is Smokers Wild BBQ. Brad Posey. His Twitter handle is Mempho Tigers #1. There was Smokin' Timbers BBQ, and their Twitter handle is @Smokin' Timbers. James Haskell, and his Twitter handle is JD Haskell. There was the Complete Chef, whose Twitter handle is COMPLEAT Chef, @Complete Chef, with that variation of the spelling. There was Jay Prince, and his Twitter handle is @Prince_of_the letter Q. There's Samuel, and his Twitter handle is @SuperHotChili, and that is the international spelling of chili with LLI. There's BBQ Dry Rubs, whose Twitter handle is @BBQ Dry Rubs. There was Unita BBQ Incorporated, and their Twitter handle is @UnitaBBQINC. There was Aram Hamper, and his Twitter handle is @PagingDrPizza. And there was Sarge the Duck, whose Twitter handle is @SargeTheDuck. There was Ernie Rupp, whose Twitter handle is @QSYourDaddy. I guess you'd say that Q's your daddy. And there was Todd Jobert of Golden Toad and Extinction Sauces. He retweeted me through two different Twitter accounts. One was @Extinction Sauces. The other one was @Golden Toad Inc. And then for the people who shared the link on Facebook. And there's another long list. There was BBQ Hooks and More. There was Jim Duffy of Refining Fire Chilies. There was Adam Furr of Endorphin Farms. There was Ricky Sanders of Madison Chocolatiers West. There was Tom Toth. There was Heath McDowell. There was Robert Bates, otherwise known as Parker to a lot of his chili heads. And there was reviewer Jacob Robertson. Then there was the Karma Sauce Company. Also sharing a link on Facebook, William Allison. Then there was the French website capsicums.fr. And there was Gina Medcalf Lee of Crazy Bitch Gourmet Sauces. Well, I might have to get her on the show sometime, ask her about that name. And there was Steve Chambers. And last but not least, there was Crud Monkey Enterprises, LLC, who makes the Daddle Do It sauces. So I want to thank all those people for sharing the link and spreading the love. So I know I've talked enough in this little intro segment, so let's go ahead and get on with the show.
And now, the review of the week.
My product review subject this week is Loud Orange Sunshine Mango Habanero Sauce. This is certainly one of the most unique products I've had probably over the past 12 months. And just taking one look at the jar that it comes in, you know that there's something different about this. First of all, unlike most sauces out there, it doesn't come in your standard bottle. It comes in a tall, skinny jar. Of course, this jar is taller and skinnier than a standard salsa jar would be. And yes, I'm going to make a couple comparisons to baby food. The makers of Loud Orange Sunshine, please forgive me. Just let me get through this. The skinniness, yes, is about the size of a standard baby food jar. So you go to open this up, and it's kind of a really deep yellow color, like a lot of spicy mustards would be. It's a little bit more runny than a mustard would be as well. I mean, you can pour this out of the jar pretty easy. And of course, with the consistency, it kind of made me think, well, this stuff could easily come out of a standard 5-ounce woozy bottle or even a larger size bottle. The jar that it does come in is 8 ounces, so I don't know if the vessel that it comes in may be confusing to people. I'm not sure. But maybe one recommendation I would give to the Loud Foods people who make this would be to consider putting it in a bottle and just kind of sell them side by side if they're ever at a food event, farmer's market, whatever, and see what sells the most. See, I guess, what is a little bit less confusing to people. But anyway, back to the product review itself. The aroma, it's very sweet, little mustardy, and yeah, like I said, there's going to be comparisons to baby food. It does kind of remind me a little bit of, just thinking back to when my boys were really youngins, when they're babies themselves. It does smell kind of like a mixed kind of banana baby food with maybe some other spicy tart elements thrown in. So, of course, that made me really curious about the ingredients. I'll go ahead and read off the ingredients to you here real quick. It contains mango, rice wine vinegar, Dijon mustard, and then it lists all the ingredients in that, water, habanero mash, honey, kosher salt, ascorbic acid, and xanthan gum. So, of course, no bananas to deal with in this. So the really low, ripe, rich smell of bananas, I guess, comes from the mango. And one thing I didn't read off, the fruit pectin that is included with a prepared Dijon mustard. So yeah, you can definitely tell that there's a very fruity, very sweet tones that are going to be in this. And a taste of this on a spoon, first of all, very interesting. So anyway, another note of that, unlike the name Loud Orange Sunshine, there is no oranges present in this. I guess maybe it's in reference to the mangoes and the orange habaneros used. And I'm not really colorblind. I'm pretty good at judging tints and colors. The sauce still is more of a dirty yellow than orange, but that's, picking nits. But anyway, let's go ahead and get to the taste of this. A taste on a spoon is very, very unusual. Very sweet. I got very slight mustard tones on the back end. A lot of that kind of rich mango flavor. Not the tartness from it, but just the deep, ripe tones that you get from certain fruit like that, including, yes, bananas. They're very present in it. Just a slight bit of tartness from the rice wine vinegar, and just a tiny little stab of heat from the habaneros. Of course, I had no idea really what to do with this. I certainly wouldn't try this with eggs. On pizza, it would be completely odd and unusual. And I'm not a huge Bloody Mary fan. I don't know if I personally would put the sauce in that, just to even try that out. So, of course, I had to look at the Loud Foods website, which could be found at loudfoods.com, just to get a few recipe ideas. And one that wasn't necessarily on their website, but one I wanted to try out was how this would fare as a wing sauce. And you know what? It wasn't too terribly bad. I'm a big fan of standard mango habanero sauces. And of course, this is probably a little bit more on the fruity end. But I like a good sweet wing, as long as it's got some heat to it. And this really doesn't disappoint. Now, I probably couldn't sit down and consume 12 wings every single week with this kind of sauce. But, if I was tired of the humdrum, I certainly would consider this for that. But then on something like a grilled chicken breast, this was a lot better than the wing application. Very sweet, was almost glaze-like. I thought, I think I'm on the right track by using it like this. And then one of the recipes that was on the Loud Foods website was orange sunshine halibut, with a few extra ingredients, including some panko breadcrumbs. This made an extremely delicious main course. Great sweetness, just a little fire on the tongue, some crunchiness, so I would definitely recommend this with some nice white fish. So, Loud Orange Sunshine Mango Habanero Sauce, not very versatile, but it's definitely one that you would apply to meats. And if used in the right way, does a fantastic job. So overall, when it comes to flavor, I would give this 3 out of 5. And when it comes to heat, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being very mild, 5 being nuclear heat, this would rate at about a 2 for chili heads. If you don't like a whole lot of spice, this might rate somewhere about 2.5, maybe even 3. But it wouldn't be too terribly scalding for most people. So you're pretty safe. So again, if you're interested in this, the website I will give again. It is loudfoods.com. You can go there right now, or if you're in a place where you can't write down the website address, you can always go to episode 20 and click the link in the show notes.
And now, the Fire Talkers interview.
Volcanic Peppers owner Tim Bader is an independent chili grower who hails from the great state of Nebraska, and he not only provides a vast assortment of fresh chili peppers, which include cayenne, habanero, bucholoca, Trinidad scorpion, and 7-pot chilies, but probably more famously is that he provides several blends of dried chili pepper powder, most notably the Volcano Dust line. And he also creates hot sauces and barbecue sauces from his chili pepper blends. I was able to sit down and talk to Tim via Skype after the big Christmas rush and ask him about how he got started as a chili pepper grower in Nebraska, how he initially developed his products, and of course, with both he and I being big, super hot chili pepper aficionados, I wanted to get his take on both the flavor and the heat of certain super hots. And so, here's my interview with Tim Bader. Good evening, Tim. How's everything going with you?
Just great, Scott. How about yourself?
Oh, can't complain. How's your holidays been?
Holidays have been great. The month and a half leading up to the holidays are very hectic with the business. So it's, it's nice to have a little downtime.
Oh, exactly. I can imagine. Just trying to get a hold of any manufacturer of sauces or seasonings or anything during the holidays is like, well, Scott, I'd love to be able to talk with you, but kind of busy now.
Yeah, it's the busiest time of the year. It really is.
So, well, anyway, let's talk about your company, Volcanic Peppers. As a matter of fact, let's go back up before that. At what point did you consider yourself to be like a real true chili head?
I've been chasing that dragon probably since I was about 18. I was always asking Chinese restaurants, Mexican restaurants, anywhere I went, just make it so hot that, because I could never get it hot enough. And I wasn't really tapped into, any kind of market where I could pick up things that would quench that desire until I tried Thai food for the first time. And that's when I was probably early 20s, and then I really started chasing the dragon. I kind of got that euphoric feeling from I told them to make it as hot as they could and somewhat regretted it, but it also introduced me to some real heat,
Yeah. And from that point, though, how did you, start your business? Was it when you really first started growing peppers and just decided, well, what do I do with all these, chili peppers?
Sort of. I really didn't. I've probably been gardening for over 20 years, growing tomatoes and peppers, onions, herbs, all that stuff just for personal use, making homemade spaghetti sauce, homemade salsa, dabbling in some hot sauces. That's been going on for 20 years, but never really, always just giving it away to people. I've never really sold it or anything. About 4 years ago, I was kind of expanding my garden and growing lots of tomatoes and some new types of peppers, including the ghost pepper. I had heard about it and decided, hey, I was going to get some of those seeds and grow them, and, a lot of habaneros and Thai chilies and a lot of that different stuff. And my youngest daughter liked to help me in the garden quite a bit. And she said, Dad, why don't we set up a stand in the driveway, sell our produce? Mm-hmm. And, I didn't want to say no, but I didn't necessarily want to do that in our driveway either. So I looked into getting a spot at a local farmer's market. And this was 4 years ago. And we set up and sold our tomatoes and peppers and, had a lot of fun with it. And that was just, selling the produce. And so it was really kind of an accident. It was just something fun for my daughter and I to do together. But you asked about, having extras. So I started finding that I wouldn't always sell all my peppers. So I'd have these leftover peppers. And I was smoking a pork butt to make pulled pork for some guests that were coming over. And I had, a couple pounds of habaneros and some different peppers, and I threw them into a vegetable basket on my smoker, mm-hmm. along with the pork butt. I fell in love with smoked peppers. I ate them, and it just really fired me up. And that's when I started playing with, smoking them. And I would actually dry them all the way on the smoker. So I'd have my smoker going for like 18 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, the neighbors loved that, I'm sure. But, I'd smoke them all the way to where they started getting dry. And I started taking those to the market. And this was my second year at the market. And I started taking the smoked peppers. I started doing just habaneros. And then I added in ghost peppers, fatale peppers, whatever I had left over. I would smoke them up, and I'd sell little bags of smoked peppers. Mm-hmm. And I was really surprised at the response. People enjoyed them. They kept coming back for them, and I would sell out of those every week. And then I started, crumbling them. I'd making sort of like flakes and putting them in whatever spice jars I could get my hands on, and started selling those, and got a little coffee grinder and started grinding them. Just kind of went from there, And
now in the kitchen, I guess at what point did it become annoying to everybody with all the fumes? Because that was primarily whenever I would start growing chili peppers, especially the super hots, mm-hmm. 5-6 years ago. I'd have the ghost peppers and all that kind of stuff. I would dry them. Mm-hmm. Of course, I would just use like a little food dehydrator that would have everyone running out of the kitchen, and then I would grind them, and just the smell from that was enough to make people run out of the house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I was actually probably the first time we had to evacuate the house was the first time I grew habaneros. And I'd say that mm-hmm. was maybe 12 years ago. I don't even know how I got them. I think I just picked them up. I was curious about them, threw them into the garden, and I had 2 habanero bushes. And at mm-hmm. the end of the season, I just got a ton of habaneros. Didn't have a clue what I was going to do with them. And this is actually kind of a funny story. You're so familiar with peppers, you'll understand. I always would scald my peppers, my jalapenos and my bell peppers to get the skins off. Mm-hmm. Well, I decided I was going to do something with these habaneros, so I got a big pot boiling. I dumped in all these orange habaneros completely. I mean, people started coming up from the basement coughing, my kids, and they're like, what's going on? What's going on? And we had to evacuate the whole house, and that was our first evacuation, our first of many.
Nothing like a good evacuation story. So anyway, back to you grinding them up and selling them. Technically, what was the first product you created under the Volcanic Peppers name?
What I said, the smoked peppers was probably the first product, and they were just smoked whole peppers. But the first thing that I really, my first volcano dust was just smoked habanero. And then mm-hmm. I kind of edited that. I got some feedback from people. Some people just absolutely loved it. But a lot of people said, well, it's just really too smoky. Maybe you could try some different things. So that's when I started mixing a combination of like smoked habanero with cayenne peppers or Thai peppers, maybe some of the yellow peppers, and started working on mixtures and refining. So my very first volcano dust was probably just smoked habanero. Mm-hmm. Then I started mixing and matching and really nailing down the recipe, which is a mixture of smoked and dried peppers.
I remember, I think the first product I reviewed of yours was a Volcano Dust 2.
Yep.
So was that a little less smoky than the Volcano Dust 1?
Yeah, it probably, by the time, I stumbled upon, the chili head community, including you and Buddha at I Love It Spicy. And that was when I really kind of got my eyes open to what's outside in the chili head world. Mm-hmm. I really didn't know. And that, what you guys had was one of my early early iterations. I was just starting to sell it online, and looking for, some exposure, getting some, feedback from the pros. Yeah, I can consider you guys the pros. So, and I valued the feedback I got. I'm pretty sure I made some adjustments based on, some of that feedback I got from you and Buddha's team. I think you were one of the people that he had me send it to. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Back then? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember doing that, and it was very good. I'm not a huge fan of overly smoked peppers, but to me that wasn't way too smoky.
Yeah.
I mean, that was right down my alley, when it comes to, I guess, that light level of smokiness. Mm-hmm. So, and then from there, you created the Volcano Dust 3. Now, how does that differ from the other two?
Well, Volcano Dust 3, well, I'll step back and just say the Volcano Dust 2, which was really my breakout item that, really kind of gained a lot of popularity, and that was smoked habanero. So the majority of it's smoked habanero, and then I mixed in some ghost pepper and a couple other peppers to offset some of the smokiness and give it more of a chili flavor. The Volcano Dust 3, instead of having a base of just your standard habanero smoked, it's a base of smoked ghost pepper. So the base pepper in that is ghost pepper. And then there's also a couple 7-pot peppers and scorpion peppers in it. It's been really popular in the chili head community. It's gained a lot of steam, and honestly, I have trouble keeping up production on that. It's all super hots. It doesn't have any just habanero or anything in it.
There in Nebraska, and I'm sure people think of it, Midwest and all that kind of stuff. People just like plain humdrum, non-spicy foods. How has the reception to chili peppers and spicy foods been there for you?
Well, and that's kind of where the thought about doing a mainstream sauce comes into mind for local sales. Because I'd have to say, really, for my local business, it's a niche. I mean, it's people like me that have never been able to find the heat that they're looking for, but then they find it. I have to say I have a really good following here in Omaha. You'd be surprised. They come and there's people that come every week and see me at the farmer's market. A lot of my stuff gets given away as gifts to people that, I don't know how many times people have said, so-and-so at work says nothing's hot enough for them, and they buy my products and then they come back smiling, and I love that. So, I realize that I'm marketing to a niche group because, the mildest stuff I put out is, habanero powder. So
kind of jump ahead to what you do now. You grow, do you grow 100% of your peppers that you use in your products? Do you get chili peppers from any other sources?
Yeah, I do not grow all of my peppers. I grow the peppers that I sell at the farmer's market. Mm-hmm. So I do grow usually between 150 and 200 plants myself.
Yeah. And
then I buy from, a variety of people, whoever can get me what I need. Some people I buy directly from them, from the growers. Jim Duffy does some brokering for me, makes some arrangements to make sure I get my needs met. And then a couple farmers that I buy directly from.
Okay, very cool. And then besides the volcanic dust products, what are some of the other dried spices and seasonings that you offer?
Well, something new that I came out with this year, my goal with this was to make something a little bit milder and start making, using some other spices. So really my introduction into that was my hot garlic and onion that I came out with this year. And that's really just what it sounds like. It's mostly garlic, and then there's some onion. They're granulated, and then a variety of super hot peppers. But the amount of peppers in there keeps it, I wouldn't call it mild, because if you go heavy on it, you'll get some decent heat from it. Mm-hmm. But if you just do a light sprinkling, you're going to get a touch of that heat with some garlic and onion. So that was really my first approach into spices outside of peppers. Usually I just work just with the chili peppers.
And when it comes to chili peppers, I can kind of ask you your preferences. When it comes to like super hots, the Trinidad Scorpion Butch Tea, the Moruga Scorpion, the 7-pot, Douglas, Brain Strain, Jonah, all that kind of stuff. What are your preferences as far as heat and flavor of each one?
I'm always torn because I make products and I have to make products that aren't ridiculous. Even most chili heads, there's some of us that just always want it blazing hot, but most chili heads want some flavor and good heat. They want something that they can add to their food where they're going to get a good kick in the mouth, but it's not, just ridiculous. I don't think most chili heads eat a lot of extract stuff. I may be wrong because it sells a lot, from what I hear.
Well, you know what? I think it's getting less and less. I think the extract is what the novices, when they first enter the whole fiery foods world,
right?
They see that and they just want the hottest thing possible. They just want to sample the hottest sauce, get a little bit on a toothpick. But yeah, once you're into sauces for a number of years, you want something with good flavor as well as good heat.
Right.
Of course, you're not going to get good flavor with extracts, but you are going to with chili peppers.
Right. As far as flavor, I'm a little bit partial to the 7-pots. I love the 7-pot Jonah. I love the 7-pot Douglas. I think the 7-pot Douglas is probably the most underrated pepper. I think it has great flavor, and I think that's just me. Different people have different tastes, but I think it has great flavor and just a lot of heat. I think it's right on par with the scorpion peppers. The numbers, in my opinion, looking at, you're probably familiar with the study numbers that came out of New Mexico. Mm-hmm. I look at those numbers and it solidifies in my mind as a dust maker, as a person that processes peppers and grinds them and comes up with the ultimate average. Those numbers confirm in my mind what I thought already about the Douglas, that it's one of the most consistently hot peppers. So if you take 20 pounds of the Douglas, dry it all out, grind it, I think you're going to get a certain level of heat from a powder that you might get more variance from some of the other peppers, where they're going to have a wider range, and you may get some milder ones, you may get some just crazy hot ones. The thing I like about the Douglas is I think it's very, very consistent.
Very good point. Yeah.
Right at that 1.2 mil. I mean, and I think it doesn't have as wide a range as some of the other peppers.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people ignore that, consistency when it comes to heat levels. Like even take the lowly jalapeno. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm pretty sure you know exactly how much that could vary. Some will have the heat level of just maybe a spicy bell pepper. Other ones could just, eat a whole jalapeno popper and you think, damn, where did all that heat come from?
I know what you mean.
And then when you get to the super hots, it's like everyone's looking for that tip-top number. It's like, well, what about consistency? You want that regular heat level. You want to know what you're expecting. But then again, I think once you get up past like 1 million Scoville, I mean, does an extra couple 100,000 really going to affect things? Probably not so much. But yeah, when you had things dipping like well down to maybe 200,000-300,000 Scoville units, and that's very possible with some of these super hot peppers. Yeah, you are going to taste the milder ones themselves.
I really like the 7-pot peppers. I do like the scorpion peppers. I think the flavor's probably not going to meet everybody's palate. It's a very strong flavor, in my opinion. I like the ghost pepper, but again, I'm kind of partial to the ghost pepper being smoked. I think it just takes a little bit of maybe some bitterness out of it or something. I'm not sure, but I do like to smoke the ghost pepper, and that was, like I said, the base of the Volcano Dust 3. The scorpion peppers, the one and only video I did on YouTube was me eating a Trinidad scorpion, a Butch T Trinidad scorpion, and I think somebody kind of nudged me and said, if you're gonna sell these, you need to walk the walk. And I said, all right, then I'll do it on video. And it was ridiculous. It was probably, I had dabbled in a lot of these hot peppers, using the powder, eating slices of them. But man, taking a whole pod and eating it, that tore me up.
Oh, that's a whole other story.
Yeah, it was like a day and a half of my gut just saying, what the hell are you doing, man?
Well, of course, different peppers affect you. Well, it affects me differently, too. Some, I can eat them fine, but on their way out, that's when they do their damage.
Yeah.
Other times, it will just blow me away in the back of my mouth and in the back of my throat. That's where I feel most of the heat. So it varies with me.
Obviously the straight peppers that I dry and just offer, like the scorpion or the 7-pot, I don't do any mixing with that. That's just, the straight pepper, but I really, the pepper, especially the dried ones, even the sauces I make, I try to use peppers with different qualities in them. For instance, in the Volcano Dust 3 and the Volcano Dust 2, I use a yellow pepper. I don't specifically list it on the label, but I think it adds it just gives it a little bit of that all around. I don't know how to say it, just like how you said, some of the peppers hit you in the front, some hit you in the back, some hit you in the roof of the mouth. I like mixing and matching peppers that do different things so you can get that all around mouth burn. I try to do that in the sauces and the powder mixes that I make.
We're going to take a little break right now, but we'll return to the second half of this interview right after these messages.
Streetscape Television isn't just another television program. It's a piece of perpetual digital advertising that helps you and your company, business, or effort grow its digital footprint. Learn how Streetscape Television can guide you and your business or effort into the future of what the web has to offer today by visiting streetscape.tv. That's streetscape.tv.
I'm Bob Chrisman from the Galaxy Cast, reviewing each and every episode of The Clone Wars, sci-fi entertainment, and more on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
Having a friendly, relatable voice can make all the difference in your marketing efforts. Let Scott Roberts' voiceover be that voice. I can give you the goods, whatever your need is, whether it be for commercials, podcasts, voicemail phone systems and on-hold messages, business presentations, websites, audiobooks, and more. If you require a personable, real, down-to-earth voiceover artist, then look no further. You can find out more at scottrobertsvoice.com.
Hi, it's Vic Porcelli. Don't miss our interview with Michael the Grinder Mizrachi in our most recent episode of Two Guys Talking Poker.com.
The Two Guys Talking Nostalgia Engine is here, and we need your help. Two Guys Talking has begun stockpiling reviews of great, classic movies, and we want to know what you want us to review. Access twoguystalking.com now and tell us which classic movies on DVD and Blu-ray we should put into the Two Guys Talking Perspective Review crosshairs and help us fuel the internet's best repository for engaging, nostalgic feature film reviews. Access twoguystalking.com and click any one of the Nostalgia Engine pictures. Tell us which movies you want right now. Action, horror, comedies, even the occasional rom-com. Access twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2, guystalking.com. The Nostalgia Engine. Ride in nostalgic style while you listen. twoguystalking.com.
And we are back, and here's the second half of the interview. Now, what is your approach to creating sauces? I mean, I guess it's fairly recent, the past year or so, that you've started with, the barbecue sauces and the hot sauces. What was the first sauce that you had created?
Earlier in the interview, I mentioned that I was smoking a pork butt to make pulled pork. That's kind of one of my signature things. I mean, not for sale, but just something that I've, made for special events throughout the years. And during that time, I had, come up with my own recipe for a barbecue sauce to go with the pulled pork. Mm-hmm. That was where I started with sauces. And, I worked on the recipe at home and sent it out to people to try out and give me feedback. And at the same time, I was working with Adam at Endorphin Farms, and we came to an agreement. Once I nailed down the recipe, I sent that off to him along with a mixture of my powders that I insisted that he use my powders. I know there's smoked habanero out there. I know there's ghost powder out there, but I'm pretty particular. I know what's out there, and I prefer to use my own stuff, not mainstream stuff. Mm-hmm. So that was the start. They bottled a spicy version and a hotter one that I call Hot Scorpion that has ghost pepper and scorpion and smoked habanero in it. And I got that done. Adam got it done, just in time to take to Zestfest earlier in the year. I sold a bunch of it, and then sold more at North Market. And, it's just been a steady seller for me. I sold enough at those two shows, to justify, running another batch, which Adam did, later in the year. I'm actually at the point where I need to start thinking about, because as you know, I started making some of my own sauces. If I want to do this again myself, or rely on work something out with Adam, I'm not sure at this point. It's something I'm deciding.
Well, I had reviewed the barbecue sauces over at scottrobertsweb.com. Everyone listening to that could jump over there. Just do a search for Volcanic Peppers and find that. And then my friend over in France, Matthew, had reviewed the Lava Chocolate Lightning hot sauce.
Right.
And I tried that myself. Where was it? I think it was at Peppers at the Beach. I was like, wow, that is just fantastic. Just the flavor of the pepper really shines through.
Yeah.
It's not heavy in the vinegar or heavy in this and heavy in that. It's a strong pepper sauce.
Yep. And that's something that, I can't take full credit for that by any means. Over the last couple of years, I've gotten to know, and everybody knows John, but John from K. John's Fiery Foods, we've gotten to be friends, and, we see each other at these events and we talk on the phone, and I consider him to be, he may not know it, but I consider him to be sort of a mentor.
And he has the people, yeah.
He's just one of those kind of people, he's willing to help out. And we started talking. I actually got an inquiry from somebody to make a sauce for their restaurant. And then I called John and we talked about it. And he said, yeah, I'd be willing to work with you on a sauce. And the thing fell through with the restaurant, but I still wanted to make a sauce with him. And he basically told me what he had in mind, and I told him some of the things that, it was a collaborative effort, going back and forth, but Chocolate Lightning probably, wouldn't have been born without John's help. I added in a kind of a proprietary mix of my powders and made a few changes along the way. And so John bottled the first 2 batches of that for me, and I'm now making it myself. I probably wouldn't be without his help, so I got to give him a lot of credit.
As far as any products, do you have anything up your sleeve that you haven't released yet that you're thinking, here in 2013, I'm thinking that this might do well? Anything like that in mind?
Well, there's one thing coming down soon, and I'm planning on having it ready for Zest Fest. I don't know how well it'll do, but I'm gonna make a 10 pepper flake blend that I think is going to rock some people's socks. It's going to be the ultimate pizza topping.
That sounds good.
Yeah, it's going to be, I've been playing around with it, and I think I'm there, and it's something I'm probably going to be introducing pretty soon. The sauces, I don't know that I'm going to introduce any new sauces, at least in the first half of the year. Really just trying to get my arms around the process. I went to school this year at the university, for better process control school, and got certified with that. And I just got my kettle this summer in my commercial kitchen that I'm operating in full time, and a little retail area. I've got 3 hot sauces right now, and one of them is just a limited edition. I'm not going to be making that year round because the main ingredient's Douglas, 7-pot Douglas, which is not readily available. But I've got the raspberry scorpion sauce that I'm making, which that was not a collaborative effort. That was something I, kind of came up with. But again, having that help getting that first sauce kicked off really made that possible too, or at least sped it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Coming up with a recipe and putting out a sauce is one thing. Anybody can do it, really. It's not rocket science. But to me, something that's really important is stabilizing that and coming out with a consistent product that, you can reliably put out every time and have the, one bottle from one batch be the same, or at least, pretty close to what you put out in the last batch.
Exactly, yeah.
It's a challenge. I mean, people, you would think, but there's all kinds of variables that play into, that consistency. So that's really what I'm trying to focus on with the sauces is putting out consistent products. So.
Well, very good. And I think one of the, strangest but best products that you've had a hand in creating was the Scorpion Stinger Caramels from Madison Chocolatiers West.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with that?
Rick and Renee started becoming active on the Chili Head site on Facebook, and I started hearing about them, and they started showing some of their stuff. And I sent a message to Rick Sanders. I said, hey, man, let me send you some of my powders and see what happens, play around with them, see what you come up with. The only hand I had in it was introducing him to some super hot powders. I sent him some Scorpion, some chocolate habanero, maybe some 7-pot peppers and some ghost peppers. And we've been, going back and forth on some things since then. But, he took that scorpion and came up with these scorpion stinger caramels, and he sent some to me and just knocked my socks off. I was like, wow, these I thought they were great.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of went from there, we kind of take care of each other. I mean, they buy the powders that they need from me now, of course, at a discount. And then they sell the scorpion stingers to me at a discount, and I resell those under Volcanic Peppers. It's not exclusive. They sell them as well. Mm-hmm. It's a great relationship. Rick and Renee are awesome to work with. We actually shared a booth at ZestFest last year, which I understand is an exception, but it was nice of them to let us do it. It helped both our companies out to be able to share last year. So
a couple great new companies as well. Yeah, I remember that from last year. Great fit and great product that you guys collaborated on. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
That's something I ask myself. I do struggle with that question. Right now, I mean, although I get some help from like family members and friends, help me out when I need the help. But right now it's manageable on my own. I am at the point where I'm doing this full time now, and it does take my full attention. But it's manageable. It's something that I can manage, and it's comfortable. Mm-hmm. So that question goes through my mind a lot. Where do I want to go? Do I want to keep it manageable, keep it a little bit homespun, where, keep it smaller in a small kitchen where I can control it? Or do I want to, really try to take it to the next level over the next couple of years? And it's something I'm going to have to decide. I think to some extent it's going to decide for me. I think my customers and, how much continued growth is going to decide where I go. Right now I'm keeping it controlled, and I'm actually purposefully not trying to grow too fast. Mm-hmm. I want to put out quality products, and I want to have good relationships with the people I buy and sell to, and that's real important to me. So, I'm trying to keep growth controlled, but over the last couple of years, amazing growth. It's tripled each year over the last 3 years. So
yeah, exactly. And you want to keep it manageable. You don't want it to completely overwhelm yourself. Nice, comfortable, steady growth. That's the way to go. Is there anything else you want to plug or mention before we get off the call?
I think if people are listening to this, they're probably chili heads. And I believe that, the products I put out are geared towards chili heads. I get asked a lot why I don't make more mainstream items for the masses. Maybe someday, but right now my focus is on chili heads. My sauces are hot. They have great flavor. The powders I pride myself in the quality of the powders. I don't rush it. I don't overcook them. But I also don't undercook them because of safety. I want to put out safe, quality products. So I would say, try the Raspberry Scorpion. I've got only a few cases left of my limited edition sauce, the Death by Douglas. It's a firecracker. It's pretty hot. I think it has real good flavor. And you'll probably find some in your mailbox pretty soon.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
It sounds like a hot one.
It is. It's got the 7-pot Douglas, and it's got chocolate ghost pepper. Those are the fresh peppers in it. And then it's got a nice portion of Scotch bonnet powder, and then pineapples and cherries. I think it's a nice flavor combination, and it's nice and hot, too.
Oh, very good. Anyway, thank you very much, Tim, for taking the call with me tonight.
Sure, Scott, it was my pleasure. It's always great to talk to you.
Okay, well, you take care.
All right, you too. Thanks.
And it was great talking to Tim as usual. If you're interested in his products, you can simply hop over to volcanicpeppers.com. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Weekly Firecast. Don't forget to visit my blog, scottrobertsweb.com, where I provide coverage of the fiery foods and barbecue world. And if you're on Facebook, be sure to like my page at facebook.com/scottrobertsweb. Or if you're on Twitter, you can follow me at twitter.com/scottroberts. Thanks for listening, and until next time, remember, keep it burning.
This has been the Weekly Firecast. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast via iTunes or at the official website at scottrobertsweb.com/weeklyfirecast. The Weekly Firecast is part of the Two Guys Talking podcast network. For more information on other great Two Guys Talking programming, you can go to twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2, guystalking.com. Thanks for listening. And remember, keep it burning.